Sussex Southampton 6 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1891 and is the 122/88 steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 260 Mogul type steam locomotive. Also, it is named Maria for some reason as well. It may have had something to do with one of the engineers on board the locomotive during the logging days of the engine. This locomotive was once a logging locomotive in forests for the Surry Sussex Southampton Railway in Dendron, Virginia originally. It originally had a straight stack, extended smoke box, box-style kerosene headlight, and a vertical stave pilot. The engine hauled passenger and freight for that railroad for a number of years. In 1898, the locomotive was converted to burn coal. In 1903, the original headlight was replaced with a 2-inch, 2-foot, smaller box headlight. The headlight was again replaced in 1913, but this time with a round case. However, the size remained the same. Sometime before 1914, the original Baldwin straight cap stack was replaced with a venturi-shaped cast stack, and the plate pilot wheel replaced with a spoked pilot wheel. Then in 1925, it was retired and it was returned to the Baldwin Locomotive Works. And then in 1936, it was then bought by the Argent Lumber Company in Hardyville, South Carolina, but retained the original number and has always had this number. And the locomotive went back to burning wood and was added with an iron cab and Rushton stack, which is a balloon-shaped smokestack. In 1955, it suffered a crown sheet failure and the engine crew lost their lives, but the engine was soon rebuilt. Then the locomotive was then put for sale at a railroad auction in Georgia after retirement, and the locomotive was one of the first two steam locomotives to be bought by the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa in 1960. This locomotive and the other were moved to McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and it is the first locomotive to operate on the Midwest Central Railroad. It was restored at the founder's home nearby, and once it arrived, it had a third of its smoke box cut off. As well as that, the tender was relettered Midwest Central. Also, a short distance of track was laid, and it would run back and forth on the tracks that led from the North Station to the main gate. Then a full circle was complete around this half of McMillan Park in less than 2 years. The railroad's loop would be complete and it would travel the opposite direction till it was turned around to face the appropriate direction it is going these days. The locomotive was still a wood burner when it was purchased and still burnt wood while in service on the Midwest Central Railroad. When it was cosmetically restored, the side rod and valve gear was painted red along with the rectangles on the cab under the windows. It was the main rod engine until 1971 when it was taken out of service. In 1988, it was back in operating condition and it had a new boiler and was then converted to burn oil and remained in service for several years. As well as that, it was restored with its livery from when it operated over the Surry Sussex Southampton Railway, but kept the Rushton smokestack and also still wears the Rushton smokestack to this day. Then in 2008, it went out of service for and overhaul. And then in 2010, the locomotive then operated on Midwest Central Railroad tracks once again after 2 years of being out of service. It was also used for a movie that was filmed at McMillan Park, which is one of the locations for this movie, which it came out in 2010, which is called Dogjack. In 2016, one of the parts near the valve gear on the engineer's side produced a crack, and then it was soon welded back together. In the last six footages shown in the video, you can tell that the paint on the side rods were stripped to the bare metal. In 2022, the evening before Old Threshers was over for the year, it suffered a broken pilot truck spring and the new Bissell post bolt was manufactured and it was ready to roll just in time for Midwest Haunted Rails the next month. Also today, Surry Sussex and Southampton 6 is like the only remaining Surry Sussex and Southampton 260 left in the world today, and it is also one of 4 surviving Argent Lumber Company 260s that remain today. And here at the Midwest Central Railroad, 2 other moguls from that company belong to Midwest Central Railroad with it, which is New Berlin and Winfield 2 and Argent Lumber Company 1. As well as that, the 4th one, the only one not in the fleet, is the number 3, which is down at the Okefenokee Heritage Center in Waycross, Georgia. As number 6 is preserved here at the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, it operates for many years to come on the Midwest Central Railroad tracks during operations of Midwest Central Railroad as well. Also, it is the oldest steam locomotive that lives in the state of Iowa and is the oldest locomotive on the Midwest Central Railroad as well.